Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone once again, ready to talk some more Stargirl from the DC Universe and the CW with my fellow Fandom Zoner and just all-around wonderful person, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am great, Charles. Always enjoy our Sunday morning visits. And I am looking forward to continuing our journey through this really fun, getting to be very interesting series of Stargirl.
Yeah, well, we're kind of like on the back end of the first season now. We're at episode 9 of the first season, so here at episode 185, we're going to talk Brainwave. And like I said, this is the 9th episode of the first season. Aired on July 13th, 2020, written by Colleen McGuinness, who wrote the previous episode Icicle, and directed by Tamra Davis, who's directed a lot of music videos from back in the day, some notable ones. Too many really to really list here.
Okay.
But I also know her from, she's directed some episodes of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Oh, nice.
The short-lived TV series that only ran for like 2 seasons on BBC America, based, of course, on the Douglas Adams novel, which is obviously
one of your idols.
Exactly,
yes.
which got my interest. So this one obviously is a big one for Henry King Jr., and also gives us a little background on his father, the original Brainwave. So I'm looking forward to talking about this one with you. Before we get into some trivia, what was your general thoughts about this one?
This was another good one. I'm always a little uncomfortable when you have the uncomfortable meal.
Right.
A little bit of real world comes into me, like who invites somebody over that quickly without giving your spouse a heads up?
Yeah.
And that I feel like that only happens in TV land.
Yeah. It's the whole guess who's coming to dinner thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm at least glad that the meal part of the conversation, like the food part went well.
Right.
And there was a little tenseness. There was some, I'm sure we'll get into details, but there was some beautiful of them speaking Norwegian and you couldn't understand it, and
I've kind of
just other things.
I've kind of devoted our third topic to talking about Barbara and the McKents.
Yeah,
but so in that whole dinner scene that we need to talk about.
But I think once again we continue to move along the story well. We get a little more background on a couple of characters. I think the plot moves forward. This is a really solid episode. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in this episode. Between, we get a little bit of the tease of the 7 soldiers. We get Brainwave and his son, that dinner scene. And finally, and we'll talk about this in our 4th topic, we finally learn what the ISA's plan is.
Yes.
So at long last. So we finally find out what those wacky supervillains are up to. All right. So like I said, 4 topics I want to talk about today. So topic number 1, excuse me, before I get into that, I should get into some trivia that I want to get into.
Please do.
A little bit. So I got a little ahead of myself there. Apologies. So trivia, I just thought I'd mention that if you want a little background on Brainwave, the original Brainwave, He first appeared in 1943's All-Star Comics, Volume 1, number 15, back in 1943, created by Gardner Fox and Joe Gallagher. And originally in the comics, he was a guy born in the early 1910s as a metahuman with vast mental attributes. So he was basically almost a mutant, born with these powers. And as an adult, he graduated in medical school, got a psychiatry degree, and then, because, hey, that's what you kind of did in the 40s, he decided to use his ability to project mental images and turn it into a life of crime. So his first criminal act was essentially creating thought constructs that stole money and needed by him to fund his activities, which of course eventually brought him into conflict with the Justice Society. So I just thought I'd give a little background there on the original Brainwave. And if Jesse, if you're curious, I also have some background on the Seven Soldiers of Victory to share.
I was hoping you do. I noticed a little bit on IMDb. They mentioned some stuff, but I know you, Charlespedia,
yes,
will have information based on your comic reading and I'm sure your research. So please do share about that.
Yeah.
Though, should it be the 8 Soldiers of Victory?
Yes,
yeah, we always argued about the name. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, that's that's one that's a little bit of a, one of those little fan debates back in the day. But so the Seven Soldiers of Victory, if anybody's wondering who these guys are that Pat refers to in this episode, it was a superhero team, kind of like, almost like the second superhero team after the Justice Society appeared. So they first appeared in 1941's Leading Comics #1, created by Mort Weisinger and Mort Meskin. And this was like a team of of basically non-relating superheroes of the time that included the Western-themed version of the Vigilante, the Crimson Avenger, and occasionally his sidekick Wing, who wasn't an official member, as Jesse pointed out, but a lot of people feel that he should have been given his due as an eighth soldier of Victory. We also had the original Golden Age Green Arrow and Speedy back in the day, the Shining Knight, whom we've talked about already, and of course the Star-Spangled Kid and Stripesy. And basically the team gets together initially when there's this criminal mastermind called the Hand, who later ends up calling himself the Iron Hand, believes himself to be terminally ill, and he decides, well, okay, I've got a bunch of these schemes, these plans that I never got around to, so I'm going to give these to 5 other criminals, Big Caesar, the Dummy, the Needle, Professor Merlin, and the Red Dragon, to go out and commit crimes across America as, quote, the Hand's 5 fingers. And that way, that'll prove how, my incredible criminal genius to the world. That was his plan. So he also, because, hey, what's criminals without, why make it easy for the criminals? He goes ahead and challenges their enemies, which of course it turned out to be all the heroes of the Seven Soldiers of Victory, to stop them with, presuming that, okay, they're going to, they'll get, the criminals will be so good that they'll lose, that the heroes will lose. But, of course, the heroes win because, hey, they're heroes, and they defeat the 5 fingers. And after that, they decided, well, hey, we kind of worked well together, so they formed the Seven Soldiers of Victory. And so that's basically how they came together. Now, I got to know the team personally because I'm a fan of the Justice League of America comics. And so like later in kind of like the 70s, they came out with this storyline to kind of explain where the Seven Soldiers had been. And it was during a crossover between the Justice League of America and the Justice Society of America, one of their annual team-ups, where you find out that the Seven Soldiers fought and destroyed this guy called the Nebula Man. And apparently the act of destroying him scattered all the members throughout time. in space. So only on planet Earth, of course. And it was up to the Justice League and the Justice Society. They kind of split off into smaller groups, and they went back in time and rescued the various members, bringing them into then the present day. So that's a little background on the Seven Soldiers. Curious to see how much of that gets incorporated here on Stargirl.
Yeah, it's once again, because it's only 13 episodes and you only have 45 minutes or so.
Right.
They can't go too much. I vaguely remember seeing them, like I said, in reprints. So I was certainly aware of them. So I think once again, it's kind of a nice nod that the series is throwing into this whole Silver Age of this classic episodes. And I have to feel part of this is James Robinson, because of his Starman background and his desire to weave all that history into his series, and then Jeff Johns having a background writing these characters. I think in the writer's room, they're like, okay, what not only Easter eggs can we put in, but can we actually just throw a subplot or a little story to these, Golden Age characters? So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, so essentially Stargirl is becoming the show that kind of brings the Golden Age and introduces it to the generation of today. So go ahead.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Charles. When Arrow started, they tried so hard this is kind of a self-contained universe. We want to build this as realistic as possible. And, they kind of work all this stuff. Then slowly the Arrowverse started growing. I think because of all that other work, Stargirl was able to, hey, we're just going to go all the way out. This is a world where we have had superheroes, and there are generations of superheroes and supervillains, and let's just explore that in a really entertaining way.
Well, it kind of fleshes out this particular corner of the DC TV universe that hasn't really dealt with. We talked about this, that these are characters that obviously haven't gotten a lot of screen time in TV shows. So it kind of gives them their own little playground, and they're just here with the introduction of the Seven Soldiers of Victory into Stargirl. It kind of gives even just a little bit more background to explore, especially Pat's connection to the team. And so we'll see. I'm sure we'll learn more about that, of course, because, hey, if nothing else, they're already teasing the Shining Knight.
They sure did. That was a nice little tease with him, I think it was the mop handle, right? Or a broom handle that looked like the staff.
And this episode, he's kind of, the only update we get with Justin, the janitor, was that basically he's holding his broom handle out, and it kind of morphs into a staff similar to Courtney's, and then that kind of freaks him out, and the staff turns back into a broom.
Yeah, really nice.
So we'll see. So I think it was just more him hallucinating than the actual broom handle turning into anything.
Right.
And so we'll see how that plays out. But that's basically our update for as far as the Shining Knight goes. So so let's get into the topics. 4 topics. One of them features the Seven Soldiers of Victory, so we can talk a little bit more about Pat finding that, showing Courtney that photograph, which was a wonderful Easter egg for DC Comics fans. So let's talk about Courtney, Pat, the JSA, and our man Wildcat, Dr. Midnight, and then also we can talk about a little bit about the Seven Soldiers, about that photograph. Pat showing that photograph to Courtney. So what did you make of these characters in this episode? I know there's a lot there to unpack.
There is a lot to unpack. The team continues to. They are not a very unified team. Pat's like trying to do research. We need to find out, are there secret tunnels underneath Blue Valley that connecting things? We got to figure out what that's used for. The only way we're going to do is through this old material.
So he kind of assigns Beth and Rick to this.
Yes.
And of course Rick's like, I got no time for that because I got to go decode my dad's journal.
Right. Yeah. If I can't hit something, I have no interest in being a team player. I got no time.
So it all
Yeah.
falls on Beth and Chuck.
Yeah. And, of course, Beth, being a, loving knowledge, and also like, hey, I got to do what I'm doing. We also kind of, Yolanda's not there because she's all upset because obviously Courtney has listened to our podcast
Yes.
and is trying to help Charles's prediction come true.
Right.
She's like, oh, we need someone. I think Henry he can redeem himself. I think we need his powers. And the other three are like, are you on drugs? Do you remember what this guy has done? And especially Yolanda, that, and I think she's got a really legitimate, point.
Yeah.
That's saying, hey, he humiliated me. He betrayed my trust. He is a bad guy. And you just, because it didn't happen to you, you just want to like, oh, okay, bygones, let's move forward. So the team's kind of fractured. And I've kind of liked that because they are young, they're hot-blooded, they're teenagers, there's a lot going on. And I am hoping that they will become together as a team, but for now, there is a lot of different tangents in what they're doing, and in a lot of ways, Pat and Courtney are herding cats.
Yes.
And trying to figure out what they're going to do. How about you? What are some of your thoughts about that?
Well, obviously, I'm all for Courtney trying to recruit Henry.
Yes.
Because, hey, that kind of fits my theory, and, I want to see Brainwave Jr. being a good superhero.
Right.
Unlike his father. So I'm all about that. But understandably, I get where Yolanda's coming from, although I still keep waiting for Henry and her to finally sit down for like 5 minutes and talk this out and go, and for him to explain, well, hey, Cindy is the one who shared that photo on my phone.
And
not me.
She gave him a chance to a little bit to apologize when they were together.
But for whatever reason, he didn't take it. Yeah.
He didn't at all. He didn't. I'm going to give him a little bit of credit, even though I am definitely on the anti-Henry bandwagon. He's got a lot going on in his mind. Not only is he getting all these reveals about his father.
Yeah, we'll talk about Henry in our second segment, but yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And but yeah, it just Yolanda, talks about her love. She finally admits that she loved him.
Mm-hmm.
But she threatens to kill him. But she had an opportunity to try, and she didn't take it. So I don't think that she would follow through on that personally.
No, I don't either. I think she's working out of emotion.
Yeah, exactly. She's understandably upset because, hey, of all the fallout from that, and of that picture of her being shared everywhere, and the problems it's caused for her with her family and whatnot. So I mean, I get where she's coming from, but I think she's just right now. She's just feels hurt mainly because the guy that she loved, she feels he betrayed her.
Oh, absolutely. And she's right to feel betrayed.
Right, exactly. So I get it. So like I said, I want these two kids to like sit down for like 5 minutes and talk this out.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully they'll get that chance at some point. But like you said, Henry's going through his own things, which we'll talk about here shortly. So Courtney and Pat, go ahead.
So I was going to ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
This is a minor quibble,
okay,
but I'd like your feeling. And I think I know your answer, but do you feel that throwing the 7 soldiers of victory in there is kind of an unneeded complication? We already have one team. Now we're having another. Do you think they have to do that to get Justin in there to explain that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think they didn't go into it too deeply.
Yes.
All they did, was basically it was Courtney finding out from Pat that, oh, hey, he and Sylvester belong to this other team.
Right.
The 7 soldiers. and it gives Courtney kind of a chance to mock, guys like the vigilante and whatnot. But they didn't. He didn't go into too much detail with that. It was just
Okay.
more. I think it was just more like. So it was setting up the explanation for later on when Justin does finally become the Shining Knight.
Okay.
So Pat can go, well, yeah, this is the guy that I knew back when I was a member of the Seven Soldiers.
Okay. Fair enough.
So
I agree. I think
it's teeing up a future explanation. Bottom line.
Good deal. Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that he doesn't have to go into too much detail.
That's very good. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, I thought it was a very cool Easter egg that happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I really liked Courtney when she confronted Henry, and we'll talk about that more. But I just love the fact that she kind of pointed out to Henry, look, Joey Zarek was a great kid, a nice kid. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good line. So
it was a very good line.
And then Courtney, Pat and Courtney again having this conflict of like, well, Pat wants to talk to Barbara and lay everything out so there's no secrets, but Courtney is obviously against that. And we get another dose of that here.
Yeah, and I still stand by my, hey, Pat, be the adult.
Yeah.
And he does say that. He is going to let her know, and then timing gets in the way this time, and then we get the
ultimate. And we'll talk about that because, obviously it's a big moment, and I'm sure it'll cause a little friction for Pat, but eventually he'll get off the hook, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
All right. And then Courtney with the awkwardness of finding out that, oh, hey, the guy that I think is kind of cute and is, sort of interested in me might be the son of a supervillain.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else about Courtney, Pat, or the JSA? Or the Seven Soldiers, really?
No, I'm good.
All right. Topic number 2. This is the kind of the meat of the episode in this one. So let's talk about Brainwave and Brainwave Jr. So we finally get some backstory on the original Brainwave, just as Henry Jr. is coming to terms with his powers and the fact that they're still kind of he starts to get a little bit of control over them in this one. But because of all this going on and then encounters with Yolanda and Courtney, he's kind of all over the place a little bit on this one. So what did you make of Henry digging into his father's background?
I like that. I did. This is probably very, very silly of me, but I went, had Henry ever seen a VCR before? He sure understood how to work that pretty quickly.
Right. Well, it's not hard, really, but
yeah, it is. So, I
maybe saw it in old movies. Who knows?
Yeah, it must be an old movie or something, right? I guess if you saw a dial phone, you could figure out how to use it pretty quickly.
Because I've seen the old phones and movies where they have like the separate receiver holding up to the ear, and then you've got the kind of like long telephone stick that you speak into. So I'm pretty sure I could work that out.
Yeah. But I did think of that, and I did wonder, hey, Hank, you didn't want to digitize this? Keeping all these old VHS tapes?
Right.
This was a very effective way to tell Henry King's origin story, show his descent into, if not madness, evil.
Right. That's a great point, by the way.
His justification of why he becomes evil is seeing the evil, the negative and cruel undertones of a lot of people, though. And I did not write this quote down, but Courtney talked about there's also good, right? And if you dig a little deeper, you'll also find good things that people are thinking.
Yeah. And I think it's Courtney that's going to be the one that kind of keeps Henry Jr. from becoming his father.
I think so too.
Because, the way she just when he starts to go down that road, she says something that kind of makes him stop and think a little bit.
Yeah. And
I like that.
yeah, but the idea of hearing when when Henry King Jr. is in the hospital room and the orderly comes by, or the nurse, I guess, and says,
nurse.
"I never did like Dr. King."
Yeah.
Is isn't enough reason you should kill someone, which he didn't. But the idea that he is,
it kind of angers him a little bit.
It does anger him, and
so he kind of understands why his father considered people monsters.
yes,
Once he was able to hear their thoughts, because it kind of makes Henry Jr. feel that his father was right in a lot of ways.
Yes, which does not bode well for your redemption story.
No, but
there's still hope. Yeah, no, I agree.
It could go either way at this point.
Yeah. The other thing I found pretty interesting is I read something that one of the things in modern society that is frustrating is people in general, not specifically you or I or anyone specific, but people in general tend to believe the worst in others and the best in themselves.
Yes.
Like, I have the best intentions, but I assume my fellow person has the absolute worst intentions instead of the other way around. And so I think that's where both Brainwave and AKA soon-to-be Brainwave Jr. are doing. They are believing the absolute worst in someone, their darkest thoughts, instead of pursuing what could be the better thoughts. Instead of looking, the nurse is still taking care of his father, despite how the nurse felt about him. And let's face it, Dr. King probably was not the nicest person in the world to the staff.
No. Go ahead.
No, so I just like this whole the flashbacks through the VHS tapes, him showing how his father descended in what he is, the joy he found in it. And if you find out that your father is something terrible, horrible, he's still your father. You still love him. And then you've got all this emotion of, I now can read people's thoughts. I can now control things. I've got all this stuff going on. Henry's in a bad place. And I think Jake Austin Walker played that really well. The confusion and to say nothing of the headaches and all the physical pain he's in. I thought that was really well done. And we get that twist at the end where the attorney is trying to scam them out of money. He finds out and reacts absolutely horribly.
Yeah,
but
that's
kind of ending.
That's kind of the cliffhanger for this one, because this lawyer, Dr. Green or whatever, basically says that Henry's father left instructions that his life support would be coming to an end soon. And, Henry Jr. overhears his thoughts, and then he's like, this guy just wants his money. And so he kind of lashes out a little bit. But, and he texts the lawyer, mentally, telepathically, causes this guy a seizure or whatnot. And apparently, in the process of this is what jolts Henry's father back out of his coma. So the original Brainwave is back in play, and he's immediately asking his son what's going on.
Yeah, and that was a nice little moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This, hey, what's happening? And we'll see what I'm really looking forward to next week's episode to see how does he feel and what they do and how do they cover this up.
Yeah, when we find out, we'll talk about this here in a minute. That the Dragon King thinks they can use Henry Jr., but now that Henry Sr. is back on the board, back in play, they won't need Henry Jr., will they?
No, they won't.
So we'll see what happens, see how that plays out. But ultimately, Henry Jr. is at a crossroads right now.
He is,
and it could go either way, especially now that his dad is up and around. So I keep hoping that ultimately Courtney's words will sink in, and Henry Jr. will be the one to help stop his father.
Yes.
We'll see. We'll see if I'm right. But
Yeah.
fingers crossed. So good luck, Henry Jr. We're all counting.
Absolutely.
We're all counting on you. Exactly. All right. Anything else about these two characters?
No, I liked it a lot.
All right. Topic number 3. This is going to be a fun one. Barbara and the McKents. Or as I like to call it, like I said, guess who's coming to dinner?
Yes.
Yeah. So Barbara in this one invites Jordan after seeing that lonely puppy dog look on his face and his family over to dinner. Kind of surprising Pat and Courtney, understandably, because, hey, also Courtney's kind of sort of involved with Jordan's son, Cameron. And wackiness ensues, and also Courtney kind of gets tipped off that, oh, hey, Cameron's father, Jordan, might be the icicle, in a pretty observant moment on her part, I thought. So what did you make of this whole dinner sequence?
So it was good.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit
contrived.
Just that, oh, he touched a hot dish and it didn't burn him. He must be icicle.
Right.
Just slightly. I'm not complaining all the way, right? She
wasn't absolutely sure.
Yes.
She did kind of Pat did tell her, well, are we sure that he's icicle? You're just going on assumptions right now.
Yeah. But I liked it.
But it does raise some suspicion, I think.
He did. And it was an interesting dynamic. Like I said, I'm always a little uncomfortable with that, just the logistics of having last-minute people to dinner. Like, is the house clean enough? Is it straightened? You have to run the vacuum cleaner. You have guests coming over. It just all the things that I think we do before we're going to have someone, even if it was like you and Lori.
Yeah.
Let's say
most people kind of let their house go a little bit.
Yes.
And they're like, so if somebody just showed up at the last minute, you'd be scrambling hard.
Exactly.
To get the house straightened up and make it look presentable.
Exactly. So I liked that but I did like the dynamic of all 4 of them have shown up, including Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
And Mom and Dad are like, oh, I like them, but I'm not so sure about her. And I almost could see them.
You mean Cameron's grandmother and grandfather?
Yeah, because they're almost thinking, well, maybe we can get rid of this Pat guy,
right?
And Barbara will be a worthy second wife.
Yeah,
I got a little bit of vibe there. I don't know if that's just me, of overthinking it.
And you notice they're speaking in Norwegian, so that so everybody else doesn't know what they're saying.
Right. And
I guess Cameron doesn't know Norwegian, apparently.
No, he doesn't. And I wanted to I did not write down their prayer. But that was a really interesting, we normally say a prayer, do you mind?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, sure, I guess. And then this, we will eat our enemies or something, was actually pretty fun, right?
Yeah, it's almost like this Nordic, kind of almost the Asgardian type.
Yes.
Like a kind of from Norse mythology type of blessing.
Yes.
And grace. So kind of interesting. It's almost like if you invite Klingons over for dinner, I guess.
That is very much like it is.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
But this is there's a lot going on in this whole sequence. And I agree with you. It is kind of like an old TV sitcom thing, like something you'd see out of the old Dick Van Dyke Show, or whatever 80s sitcom where hey honey, the boss is coming over for dinner and you're completely unprepared for this. Sorry about your luck. And then wackiness ensues.
Yes, absolutely.
But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I also thought about scenes kind of like on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now we've talked about the
Hmm.
Buffy comparisons.
Yeah.
Kind of like where like it would be like if on Buffy, if you remember, like in season 3 when the mayor was the big bad.
Right.
Like if the mayor came over for dinner and kind of knew what Buffy was up to
Hmm.
and kind of confronted her and
Yeah.
the tension that kind of thing creates when the big bad villain confronts you right there in your own home. And that's kind of what
Trope,
happened
but
here.
it's a fun trope.
It is kind of a trope, I
Yeah.
agree, but sometimes you got to do these things, I think, and it would
Yeah.
be kind of silly because, and then also it's not like they came out of the blue with this because they kind of hinted at this little, I don't want to say a flirtation, but this connection between Jordan McKent, the icicle, and Barbara, where it almost seems like Jordan's kind of interested in Barbara. You know,
I think he is. I
that's
think,
so you agree with me that there at least she may not be interested in him, but he's interested in her. I think.
and I think he is because he is still in love with his wife. Um, he doesn't know, like,
He
I
doesn't
think right
realize
now,
it. Do you think?
yeah, I think he almost admires her more as she's smart, she's capable,
Yeah,
she's bright, and
and she
and,
kind of
and
looks like my wife a
subconscious,
little bit.
subconsciously, I think maybe that's working on her, and I definitely think his parents are very much thinking of that, like, hey, this might be a nice thing.
Yeah,
So that gives you some extra tenseness in the episode. I
it,
did love the fact that we know that they're villains, but
yes,
the rest of the people don't. So you've got that give and take of we know more than the people in the scene do, and I do hate that. I would have a stern talking to Mike when he takes the last portion. When the guest has said they want something, and
right.
he takes the last portion, like, oh, it's gone. I was like, wait a minute, you don't know that he's a supervillain. You're just being a rude little punk.
Yeah. Well, it is Mike, so
Yes,
at
I guess
least,
we should not expect.
yeah, it's pretty consistent with his character. I mean, sure, yeah, there was that little bit of character upgrade when he finally apologized to Courtney in the previous episode. But you can't expect him to completely change overnight, right?
Absolutely, you're correct.
Yeah, I mean he's still going to have his punkishness here and there.
Yes,
He's going to have his little moments because that's the kind of his character is just essentially he's the guy that antagonizes others a little bit, causes some conflict. So because of Mike, and since you brought it up, Mike, eating that little last bit of chicken dumplings, Courtney goes into the kitchen to get some more. And, she realizes, well, hey, she pulls it out of the oven and it's like, oh, yeah, oven's hot. I need to get some mitts. So pulls it out, takes it out to the table. Now, interestingly, she doesn't warn Jordan that the thing is hot, right? And so she sets that pan out, sends the dish out, and he picks it up without even having, because hey, he's icicle, he can handle it. And Courtney, and I thought it was a very observant moment. She notices that, and she's like, "Holy crap!" and goes to Pat immediately to try to talk about her suspicions. So, what did you make of that?
I really like that scene. I mean, like I said, I think this might be a little, um,
I, I
kind of
think
too
I think that
catching, leaping.
I think that moment was the why that dinner sequence was even created
Yes.
because they wanted that moment that kind of gives Courtney and Pat that suspicion that Jordan is the icicle.
Yeah. And so I like that. I like the bonding. I do think it's good that he said, "Are you sure?"
Right.
And so it and then there's this whole And the other thing that Bree plays really well is
Brec, you mean?
Brec. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you keep calling her Bree.
I know. I don't know why either. She's had Cindy come up to her house and revealed that, oh, and by the way, Stargirl, I really like your staff, right?
Right.
So she's waiting for the other shoe to fall here, right? She's wondering, is he going to say something at the end now that she suspects he's Icicle. So there was a lot of tension in the dinner of first just strange people are in our house. Then, I suspect that Jordan may be Icicle. The add of these are the parents of a boy I like, and all of a sudden we're kind of being forced together. Really well played all the way around the dinner. It was, you're right, it wasn't the meat of the episode. The brainwave stuff was the meat of the episode. But to this was the highlight of the episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, it's one of those things that kind of pushes that story forward, the main story. And, obviously, that tension gets ratcheted up because, Jordan confronts Courtney later, speaks with her privately, and because, Courtney is now suspicious of Jordan, there's that, she gets tense, understandably. But he's he says, well, I just wanted to come over and meet the girl that my son has been talking about so much.
Yes.
And just to let you know that I approve.
Yeah.
So the question is, of course, does he know that she's Stargirl?
And I don't think he does.
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think
because I don't think Dr. Ito told him.
No, I don't think he has.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, but obviously, with Courtney, from Courtney's perspective, it's a very menacing thing. It's like remember in the original Spider-Man movie where the Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, comes over to dinner.
Yes.
And and Peter knows that the Green Goblin, that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin, and Norman Osborn figures out that Peter is Spider-Man.
Right.
So there's that whole kind of double meaning to that conversation, and that's kind of what happens here.
I think so too. Well said.
Yeah. So
good reminder.
Yeah. That kind of it's something obviously we've seen before in a lot of superhero films. That's all I'm pointing out.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else about Icicle or one thing I forgot to talk about. This is pretty big. So Barbara. So once the McKents leave, Courtney is like immediately going to the basement to get her cosmic staff. And even before she and Pat talk about it, about using it on Jordan, Pat goes down there, sees Courtney getting the staff, and then all of a sudden Barbara's there in the basement going, what's going on? And sees the staff hovering in midair. So, dun dun dun, finally the secret's out. What did you make of that moment?
I was so happy. I want this. I think for all the complications it's going to have, having Barbara aware of what's going on,
right?
They are better than the complications of her not knowing. And yes, I understand that you don't want everyone to know your secret identity. I understand the importance of that. But when you are a minor, and you need to be, the mother needs to know. I just think I think this is an added step you need to have in the show.
Well, now it becomes even more complex because now if Barbara knowing, what if Icicle finds out from Barbara that Courtney is Stargirl?
Yeah. And the other thing that we got to worry about, Charles, is now that Brainwave's awake, he knows well.
Exactly.
So a lot of people know what's going on.
Yeah. So it's all going to kind of come crashing down, obviously. But yeah, now the secret's out. And we talked about how, at least I talked about it, how I thought that Mike was going to find out first before Barbara. But now Barbara knows. So I wonder if Mike's going to feel even more left out because he would be the last one of the family to know.
Yes, I think that is. I think that is a great point because he is going to feel that way, and he's right to feel that way. But I also think it's right they shouldn't tell him. Sometimes even though it bothers you, it's still the right thing to do. But he is going to be very upset that's happened, and we'll do. I am, and I wonder how long is it going to take Barbara to understand what's happening, and
Because she's
how.
gonna have to process all this.
Yeah, and also was she okay? First off, we don't know for sure that Starman was Courtney's dad, right?
Yeah.
But does she understand? Was she aware, if he was, of his other identity? And we just don't know that. She hasn't talked a lot about that.
Well,
She certainly,
maybe this is where the truth will come out about Courtney's father.
and she certainly isn't aware that Pat has had this history. She doesn't know about Pat being, Stripesy. So,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So
yeah.
So there's going to be a lot for her to process about this, and
Mm-hmm.
will she be okay with it? We don't know.
And I also have this is a random. I should have brought this up in our first segment.
Yeah.
Shouldn't Pat do a better job of hiding his suit? Because it's in
right?
his shop. It's just there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it isn't like it's in some secret lair. It's just in the back of the shop. And and even though there's signs, customers not allowed in shop for safety reasons, there's still a chance that someone could go in there.
You would think. Yes.
Yeah, just a random comment.
Well, then maybe this is why he was the sidekick. Just
Okay.
he doesn't really think about that.
Full-fledged member in the Seven Soldiers of Victory, though.
Yeah, we'll find out. Well, I mean, he was kind of a sidekick there as well, but
he got counted in the number.
But he was counted as an official member of that group. Yes, he did. So, Pat, that's the kind of funny thing about this whole thing is like the guy that also kind of needs to step his game up is the guy that is training, a new generation of superheroes. So, all right. Anything else about this?
I am good. What else you got?
All right. So let's move on. Topic number 4. Let's talk about the Dragon King, his daughter Shiv, and the ISA, the Injustice Society of America, as we finally get, what the deal is with their big supervillain plan. So we finally get that. So, Jesse, thoughts on our bad guys in this episode?
So I really want to hear your thoughts on the plan. So
Okay.
I'm going to hold off on that till you share that. I'm going to let you talk about that first. I'm just going to give a couple of comments.
Okay.
The Dragon King is a very methodical, non-emotional father, right? And this whole we don't know how Cindy Shiv killed her mother, but he says she did. We don't know if that's through some kind of accident, through childbirth, or what's going on. He does share that he's enhanced her, and then he puts her in the cell, kind of
after she gets out of control. Yeah,
a very very mean timeout. In parent speaks, right? And he even says,
so he gasses her cell to knock her out.
Yeah, she needs a nap because, as a child, that always helped her. She calmed down with the gas. So that is some messed up parenting, Charles. And he has no emotional with it. And then when he goes and visits the teammates, and they're all a little afraid of him and also a little aren't sure what's going on, and he's like, I'm with you now. I believe in your vision. I'm trying to help you, and I could be here. So there is I think they're a little bit afraid of him. I think and there is not a unity among the Injustice Society.
Well, we talked about that a little bit earlier in our series, our season, that that about possibly the Dragon King having his own agenda. and maybe subverting the other ISA's agenda.
And we don't know that for sure, right? Yeah.
No, we don't. But I mean,
it's a possibility.
But
yes.
it would not surprise me.
No,
especially seeing this division among ranks.
Yeah, and he seems at this point to be, no, I'm with you guys. I'm here.
Yeah, and and that's I think that's the front. That's what makes me suspicious that he is up to something on his own. But basically, so this plan, as we finally find out, is essentially they want to use Henry Jr.'s telepathic abilities, and this is obviously before the original Brainwave wakes up from his coma. They want to use his telepathy to funnel the amplifier. Now, remember, there was that transmitter that the principal and the gambler stole, right? So, but apparently the amplifier that Ito is building to broadcast that telepathy across 6 states.
Okay.
So essentially, this little chunk right out of the Midwest,
Mm-hmm.
Right in the center of America, right in the heart of America.
Right.
And apparently, they want to quote, take control of every fully developed mind within them,
Mm-hmm.
in order to carve out a new America as part of their Project New America mission. So essentially, what they want to do is kind of create their own country within the United States.
Yes.
So what do you make of that plan?
So we still don't have a lot of details. Like, what kind of world will that be? Is this everyone being under mind control? Are they wanting only certain kind of people in their America?
Right.
Is this to break this off so they have their own, a bigger kingdom to rule?
Jordan having those fascist tendencies.
Yes.
That he wants.
I think while they gave us another clue, I still feel like there's a lot of unknowns yet in their plan. I don't know what the end game is, what they are trying to accomplish by doing this mind control.
Well, I think this is essentially the mission statement.
Yes.
Here, so how you come up with a general idea, and then the rest are specifics to follow up on that general idea. But this is the general idea portion. This is like, okay, what we want to do, what we're up to is, okay, we want to carve out a chunk of the United States for ourselves, for our own purposes. Now, what are those purposes? Like you said, we don't know yet. But given what we've seen so far, it kind of has these fascist overtones. And almost like, like essentially Hitler carving out a chunk of Germany and then spreading out from there.
Yes, I
That's
totally
the vibe
agree.
I get.
I agree. I think that is definitely it.
So it's kind of like, they'll establish this like core territory and then use that as the way to kind of branch out to the other states eventually. So
yes.
So we'll see how that plays out. But that's the vibe I'm getting here.
And I think you're right.
So we'll see what happens. But it was, at very least, it was nice to kind of get like a general idea of what they're up to.
Yes, I agree.
And why Henry's telepathic abilities are so important to them. Although maybe not so much now that Henry Sr. is back on the board.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So so that was good, I thought. And and we forgot to talk about the reason. They kind of come up with an explanation about where Cindy is. So Beth had done some digging earlier that apparently, according to the school records, Cindy has suddenly withdrawn from school to, quote, study overseas with her mother.
Yes.
So that's the cover story. They're explain her absence.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I'm sure no one's going to dig into that, but if they did, I'd be kind of curious to see what happened.
I agree.
Yeah. It's like, all right, well, so what happened to Cindy? So it's very easily, apparently, to get rid of a kid that way. Just say, oh, yeah, they're overseas studying.
Yeah, just let that go.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. So we'll just move along. Nothing to see here. Move along, move along. All right. Anything else about this episode? Anything we forgot?
I can't think of anything.
All right. So what's your rating for this one? Or excuse, let's do this first. Let's talk about our favorite quotes. Do you have any favorite quotes?
I do have a couple. In in fact, I did write this down.
All right.
Where Henry is explaining how everything's bad, right? And just people are monsters.
Yes.
And Courtney says, life isn't that black and white, Henry. People can be bad, but people can be good too, and kind and compassionate. Maybe some of the thoughts you've read, maybe some of them are bad. I mean, sometimes we're hurting or we're afraid and we think awful, awful things. Have you tried looking a little deeper? I bet you'll find something better. And Henry, I really doubt it. And then the other one I just love, when Pat's got the 7 Soldiers of Victory photo, and Courtney, and you had a cowboy, like the Village People.
Yeah, that was good.
She has no respect for the history.
Yeah. Let's see. So, I have Brainwave talking in one of those videotapes, talking about his father. And he says, when he died, I felt better until I read the next mind and the next. Jealousy, rage, spite, deviance. No matter whose mind I peer into, vile thoughts fill up their brains and in turn mine. I have learned the truth about humanity. At their very core, people are monsters. I hate them. So that kind of shows you Henry's dad's viewpoint, outlook on the world. And lastly, and I really love this quote, this exchange between Courtney and Henry, where Courtney's kind of pleading with Henry for help, and she goes, "Help us find out who else is in the Injustice Society. Then we can stop them from killing anyone else. You know they kill people, right, Henry? Joey Zarek, his dad, my dad." And Henry replies, "Yeah, well, maybe they all deserved it." And Courtney goes, "Joey deserved it? Do you really believe that?" And Henry kind of agrees and goes like, "He was a nice kid." And Courtney replies to that going, "Yeah, he was. Why aren't you?" And I really love that point.
I like that a lot too. I thought that was really good.
Yeah. So and I thought Brec Bassinger did a really great job with that scene, as did Jake, Austin Walker. So
I agree.
Yeah, it was good. All right. So what's your rating?
I give this 8 out of 10 servings of chicken and dumplings. How about you?
Nice. You kind of sort of stole mine, but all right. So because I was going to go with 8 out of 10 scalding pans of chicken and dumplings.
Oh, nice.
But I'll go with 8 out of 10. What's a good one here? Let me think. I really should start coming up with backups for these.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go with yours. I'll go 8 out of 10 Norwegian blessings.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
All right. So yeah.
Good.
So yeah. I wanted to do the scalding pan, so that's why.
No.
All right.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Phantom Zone news. Don't have a lot, but I should mention. Hey, Stargirl got picked up from season 2, you guys. So
yeah, that's exciting.
So we are getting a second season of Stargirl. So if you've been enjoying our discussions here, well, hey, maybe you get another season to enjoy on the Phantom Zone podcast. This time around, though, and kind of another harbinger of doom for the DC Universe streaming service, Stargirl Season 2 will be exclusive to the CW.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, Charles.
Yeah.
I know we're going a little long, but not too bad.
No.
Not for us.
No.
By the way, I thought of you.
We're actually on time, pretty much.
Yeah, my Terry Smith does a podcast. He's been on Set Listing Bruce a couple of times, and he and I are going to start doing a once a month talking about Springsteen archive. Springsteen gets out of, and he said we should make it short. We want to keep this brief in and out. And he says, maybe 15 minutes. And I
Good
replied,
luck.
yes. I said, if we shoot for a 15-minute, we may make it at 30.
Yeah.
and today,
15 minutes will get you through the opening introduction.
Yes. So, someone on Facebook, one of the Stargirl Facebook pages, someone posted, are you worried about the budget, that since it's only going to be on CW, and will the budget go down because it's not on DC Universe?
Right.
And I thought the absolute other thing, I would think CW would have more money than DC Universe. It isn't like DC Universe is HBO.
Yeah.
But
it is Warner Brothers, so
I don't know. I don't feel like we have to worry about budgets whatsoever. Now, I don't know if CW and DC Universe were combining budgets, but I think that you're going to be fine being CW. But that does tell me that I think that and I'm waiting for them to announce Titans will be on HBO Max and not on DC Universe.
Yeah, we'll see, because we that's one of the things that we haven't heard yet is, what about Titan Season 3? We know it's supposed to be coming, but if they close up shop on DC Universe, where's that going to go? Or is it are we not getting Season 3? There's a lot of questions there that need answered, I think. And hopefully, and I know DC's coming out with this online event called Fandom.
Yeah.
So that's going to be coming up here, I think, next month. So so hopefully we'll get that'll be one of the things answered during that event.
And I never watched their daily show, but I saw that was canceled too.
Yes. I didn't either, which is probably why it was canceled.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was a fun. I take it felt like Entertainment Tonight in the DC universe.
Yeah, it just looked kind of cheesy to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I still, now though, ever since you've brought up, I want, especially now that I've watched one of the Perry Masons.
Yes.
I want Sandman Mr. Theater on HBO Max so much.
Right? Wouldn't that be fantastic, especially if they did it right?
I mean, when you see how well
I would love to write that. Come on.
Oh yeah, just and how well that Showtime has done with some of their period pieces, and like The Alienist on TNT. Gosh, HBO Max could do so well with that, and it would be such a great story. A great you just.
Well, I mean, you look at Boardwalk Empire, you look at Perry Mason.
Yeah.
And you know that HBO Max could do a decent period show like that.
Yes. And then if you get the right writer's room, including yourself, of course.
Right.
I just love that.
Yeah, I would. I think it would be fantastic. So,
any other news?
Just a little bit of news that there's some rumors going out that Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the first of Marvel shows turning up on Disney Plus, it was supposed to come out, next month in August, but when the August schedule came out, there was nothing. The show wasn't on there. So the question is, well, when is that going to come out? And maybe it's going to be. Looks like it's going to be delayed at least minimum until fall 2020.
Okay.
But so we'll have to wait and see, because apparently they didn't get finished before the coronavirus hit. So who knows when we're going to get that? And that was supposed to launch all the new Marvel shows.
Yes.
Set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe on Disney Plus, which seems to be struggling for content. And then also WandaVision, one of those other Marvel Cinematic Universe shows. There's now a question of, well, is that going to get delayed as well? Possibly that. So presumably, if Falcon and the Winter Soldier gets pushed back, that would push back WandaVision until spring 2021, if that's the case. So just kind of have to wait and see. So it's just something to kind of keep your eyes on.
Okay.
And hope that sooner is rather than later, I guess.
Good.
So just don't want to give everybody else. We didn't get any Phantom Zone fan mail this time. Once again, Ken from Chicago hiding out wherever he's hiding out, apparently on Twitter. So a little disappointed there, but that's all right. So we'd love to hear from you. So please drop us a line at phantomzonecast@gmail.com. Just phantomzonecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to read your letters on the air, so let us know what you're thinking about Stargirl. Are you excited for a Season 2 pickup or any other upcoming comic book TV show? We'd love to hear from you. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at PhantomZoneCast on Twitter, or Facebook, of course, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. And Jesse, where can they reach you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, but most of my time on social media is on Twitter. You can hear Charles and I talk all things Doctor Who every week on Next Stop Everywhere, where he and I are going through, we're up to modern Who, and this week's episode will be one that's really, really special. It's a two-parter, one of my favorite David Tennant episodes. I think it's a fan favorite as well.
Yeah, Human Nature, the Family of Blood.
Yes, that's going to be good. Then this week on Set Listing Bruce, I have Russ Burlingame, who is a senior writer from comicbooknews.com, and one of the subjects we talk about is he talked to the showrunner on Arrow and got a little bit of the background of why the next to last episode is always named after a Bruce Springsteen song. So we talk a little about that. So even if you aren't a Bruce Springsteen fan, there's a lot of talking about comics on that episode that goes out this week. And Charles, how about you? I think you're on the social networks a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit, once or twice. So if you can reach me, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. I would love it if you liked and follow me there. And then also Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog, Geeky Things. Come on, you.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast. All kinds of comic book sci-fi news, comic book TV show news, news of my other podcasts they do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, and Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I'm doing with DJ Nick, where we are going through Doom Patrol Season 2 right now, which has been a lot of fun. And we're also going to be having a very special guest this week as Holly Mack, who's one of our regular listeners and contributors to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, is going to be joining us to talk the episode Sex Patrol. And just by the name alone, that should prove to be a very fun episode to talk about. So I hope everybody checks that out on Titan Talk. And then Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and a ton of pop culture references. And this time, we just finished recording our review of the 2001 David Lynch film Mulholland Drive, which is a fantastic film. It's like a neo-noir mystery film and starring Naomi Watts, and it's so good. And we had a lot of fun talking about it. And then in our next episode in a couple weeks, we're going to be talking about the special features, all the documentaries and whatnot on the Criterion Collection Blu-ray release for Mulholland Drive as well. So not one, but two Mulholland Drive episodes on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Hope everybody checks those out. Jesse, anything else before we sign off?
No, Charles. As always, I'm really enjoy talking about this series with you. I think we are off to we are getting toward the end, but I think they're working great. And so, no, I'm loving this.
All right. So next time on the Fandom Zone for episode 186, we are going to talk. Well, we talked Brainwave. Now we're going to talk Brainwave Jr., the 10th episode of Stargirl Season 1, as we get ever closer to the big Season 1 finale, not series finale now, so we can call it Season 1 finale. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. Please, if you enjoy what we do, please share our links. Tell your friends about us if you deem us worthy, and I hope you do. And then come right on back next week as we talk Brainwave Jr. right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.